Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quinville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quinville scores!
Here's a chance for Perrin. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it, shoots one, bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski, another jam on the shot, turning and firing. They go! Score! Monsters score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Well, hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 6 for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tractor repair guides, we are not going to be much help, unfortunately, because this is an American Hockey League podcast. And my name is CC Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to break down some AHL hockey for you. We both watch a lot of games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch those games, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our podcast feed or channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a 20-minute primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about. And if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms, that can help you better pick up what we're putting down. I promise it isn't that nerdy or technical, and it's only 20 minutes, so it's not even that painful. That being said, we're going to talk about the Groundhog Day division here, as all teams are going to be seeing each other way more than they probably should. So put your little hand in mine, and there ain't no AHL division we can't climb.
Babe, we've got the Atlantic Division, babe. Tried to squeeze that in there. Yes, we'll keep our day jobs. We won't, moonlight as singers or anything like that, but very fitting and very appropriate that we are covering the 3-team Atlantic Division, which Sean has thusly dubbed the Groundhog's Day division because it's airing today on February 2nd, which is Groundhog's Day. So could have planned that any better if we tried. So let's get started. We will tackle the first of the 3 teams in the Atlantic Division. We'll talk about the Hartford Wolf Pack. Their head coach is Chris Knobloch, starting the second season coaching the Wolf Pack. Their 1920 regular season record was 31, 20, 6, and 5. That was good for 4th in the Atlantic Division last year. Hartford's affiliation for 2021 is with the New York Rangers in the NHL, and normally they would have the Maine Mariners, but as we've stated ad nauseum here on the podcast, the ECHL's North Division is not playing this year, so therefore the Maine Mariners are not playing this year either. Now, like we mentioned, there's going to be a lot of the same games played against Bridgeport, Hartford, and Providence. 24 games scheduled for Hartford. That's on the very low end, the lowest end of AHL regular season games scheduled for any team this season. Bridgeport 12 times, Providence 12 times. Welcome to Groundhog's Day. You're going to see the same guys over and over and over again. Hi, it's Bridgeport. Hi, it's Providence. And there's just
Rinse, cycle, and repeat.
Rinse. Yeah, exactly. Just continue to cycle that through. So with that all said, I'm going to hand it over to Sean, and he's going to talk a little bit about the Wolfpack's training camp and just kind of prime the pump a little bit.
So Hartford's training camp roster certainly sends a message that they want to be a big physical team this season. 3 guys are 6'4" or taller, and only 2 are shorter than 5'10". 17 of the 29 skaters listed are over 200 pounds. In a sport that's trending towards speed, this approach is certainly a bold strategy, Cotton. But there is at least some evidence that the New York Rangers have kind of forced their hand here about the players that they're going to get. Vitaly Kravtsov had an agreement right after the Hurricanes eliminated the Rangers in the bubble to spend the year in the KHL instead of the AHL. 2019 second-round pick Matthew Robertson, 2018 first-rounder Niels Lundqvist, 2018 fifth rounder, Lori Paginiemi. They'll be filling the role in Hartford of Sir not appearing in this film. If this were a visa issue problem, then how did Tarmo Reunanen, who's played 14 games in 2 different Finnish leagues this season, make it to the Hartford camp? Philip Cheidel, Libor Habacek, both made it to Ranger camp from Europe after needing visas renewed. The Rangers also seem to think it's more valuable for guys like Keandre Miller to play really sheltered third pair minutes with no power play time in New York than top pair minutes and first power play time unit in Hartford. The same with Capo Caco, who's playing heavily sheltered 13 minutes a night with almost no power play time over what would very likely be first line minutes in Hartford. Both have spent time in the press box in New York already this season. So, I mean, okay, New York, you do you, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me from a developmental perspective. As for the forwards actually in Hartford, Johnny Brzezinski, Tim the Tower Gettinger, and Anthony Greco are likely to be the veteran leadership for this forward core in Hartford in this sprint to the finish. I doubt they all play together, as it's typically a better strategy to spread your best players out and have multiple good lines instead of just one really good line that teams can focus on. But line chemistry is weird, inexact, and a fleeting thing. But let's talk about these guys first. Greco, in my opinion, is still the best skater in the AHL. He uses that speed and edge work as a weapon to keep defenders at bay or risk getting burned to the outside. Brzezinski is more of a physical net front presence, and while he does have decent puck skills, his skating is a clear weakness that limits his ability to do more. Gettinger is more of a defensive-minded player that skates well. Despite the fact that he's huge, he's not terribly physical. He does have a good toolkit and good hockey IQ, but he's got to find more offense, though, as this forward core doesn't really have enough depth for him to score at a 30-point pace over a normal season. Same is true for Gabriel Fontaine. He's good on the PK and in his own zone, but never really contributes to the offensive side of the puck. And coming off a major shoulder injury that cost him most of last season, I'm not too hopeful he's going to find his scoring touch. Fontaine is currently on the Rangers taxi squad, but I don't think that that's going to be a permanent thing for the season. Behind the useful vets, Morgan Barrett is probably the best Rangers prospect on the roster right now. One of the best players in college hockey last season, Barrett has pretty good puck skills with a few flashes of great puck skills. His shot is NHL level for sure, and he's got the frame, strength, and hand-eye coordination to be a solid net front presence. His ability to adjust to the pace of the AHL concerns me, as I think his skating needs some improvement. So while I think he can flirt with second-line production, I don't think he sticks the landing. I'd be more willing to bet that Paul Thompson drops the gloves in the first game on February 7th, but I don't think he's good for much else besides dropping the gloves and fighting. He used to have a good shot and be able to do some net front work, but his skating has deteriorated a lot over the last few seasons, and he takes a slew of dumb penalties each year. I guess he's supposed to provide veteran leadership, as the last 4 seasons he's either been a captain or alternate captain. And under his leadership, all 4 of those teams, he led them to 0 playoff wins, not even making the playoffs in 3 of those seasons in a league in which over half the teams make it. So I'm sure the boys in the locker room were thrilled he guided them to an early start to their off-season conditioning programs. That's leadership, right? Austin Rushoff has potential with his shooting talent and ability to use his big frame. But if I sound like a broken horse here, it's because the roster makes it this way. Rushoff's skating problems make me think he struggles with an AHL pace after a solid but unspectacular college career. Patrick Kodorenko is someone who's going to put a few defensemen on highlight reels for sure, as he has a dangerous set of puck skills. Again, his skating worries me, and he tends not to attack the middle too much or utilize his teammates well in transition. Lastly, Will Cooley is an interesting prospect. Minus his skating, he has all the raw tools you'd want from an NHL prospect. Good puck skills, very good shot, physical, but not overly so where he's going to end up in the box, but he can create chances around the net and has playmaking abilities. He struggles to be consistent and doesn't seem to have quite put it all together, so to speak. He's OHL bound should they ever get it together, but while I don't think he finds that consistency in Hartford, I think he's going to show some flashes and make a few highlight reels in his time, but I don't think he's ready for top 6 AHL minutes just yet. Overall, this group has some potential, but it doesn't have a wow factor to it. And it seems like a lot of guys it seems like a lack of guys who really excel in doing more than one thing well. Some guys that are good shooters, but who only really shoot well. Some good defensive forwards who really don't generate anything in transition or offensively. And outside of Greco, none of them are really exceptional skaters. If Chris Knobloch can find the line combinations to make the most of these skill sets he has available, the Wolfpack can turn this into a viable forward group. But I don't know that he has the pieces to make that work. But that's just about everything for the forwards. Cece, tell me about the blue liners.
All right, on the defensive side of the puck, on the back end, Vincent Laverde and Darren Radish will likely be the faces of the defense in this season. Radish had a good but not great season for Hartford. His skating is still a concern for me, and I think that holds him back from being in awards conversations at the AHL level, to be quite honest. Now, still, he moves the puck well and can get the puck through traffic from the point to score from distance. You can never have enough defensemen with that ability. Laverde's puck skills were never a selling point of his game. However, he's still responsible in his own end, and he can move the puck well when asked to. Radish and Laverde both being right-handed means they shouldn't be playing together, despite the fact that would be an ideal pairing of offense and defense. Their right-handed colleague and 2020 first rounder Braden Schneider gets to jump into the fun, as the WHL is currently WTF ATM, if I may use those hip and with it acronyms. He's mobile. All the kids are doing it. Yeah, exactly. Back to Braden Schneider. He's mobile, but he doesn't have the offensive tools that are pro ready. His game is more subtle in good zone exit passes, excellent transition defense, and smart use of his stick. Now, he skates well. He has great patience, but I think he needs some seasoning before he plants the flag as a top defenseman in the AHL. Now, in that same mold, but not as smooth of a skater, is Jordan Sambrook. Sambrook doesn't have the transition smarts that Schneider possesses, but he's good in his own end, and he's another big physically minded defensive defenseman with some offensive upside, which, again, like I mentioned earlier, never hurts to have D-men like that. So the only left-handed defender on the roster of note is Tarmo Reunanen, who comes over from Finland for the first time, as if the last name Reunanen didn't give that away. He and goalie Adam Hushka are the only non-North Americans on the roster, but Hushka has been in the U.S. for years, while Reunanen is crossing the Atlantic as a long-term stay for likely the first time in his life, which in a normal year is already fun enough. You've got language barriers and things like that, although the Finns usually have a good grasp on the English language. But I'm sure it'll be extra fun this year, as he's culturally going to be on a bit of an island. Now, on the ice, Reunanen displays a very fun offensive game, fueled by creativity with the puck on his stick. He's more of a passer than a shooter, definitely more of a playmaker, despite having a good shot, but he's not afraid to make moves. His skating gives me pause and makes me wonder how he handles the pace of the AHL initially, but as the only lefty that interests me, he's likely going to have to figure it out sooner rather than later. Guys like Brandon Crawley and Mason Gertson, they're on the roster, but their role seems to just ensure that the team gets plenty of in-game PK practice. Now, overall, the group isn't too shabby, and while there are some concerns, they're more moderate than severe. I'd like to see another useful left-hander get added here, as Reunanen is likely not ready for that big a role, and putting Schneider or Laverde on their off-hand side, make a right-hander play, the left-hand side as a defenseman, I think that's just a bad idea if it can be avoided for sure. Now, got the forwards covered, got the defensemen covered. Sean's going to talk about the Hartford's local voodoo practitioners in their goaltending unit.
Well, if there was ever a better name for a goalie than Tyler Wall, I'd be very interested to hear it. Wall posted 2 very good seasons as a starter in college and displayed that while his athleticism isn't exceptional, his ability to read the play, see moves ahead, and stay up on his angle is very much exceptional. I think he may struggle a little early on as he tries to get up to AHL speed, but I think he's going to be a solid starter for the Wolfpack eventually. The other interesting goalie is 2020 fourth-round pick Dylan Garand, who is in some ways the opposite of Wall. He's shown some struggles in tracking the play, but his athleticism is exceptional and he regularly shows elite quickness making post-to-post saves. Being a 2020 draft pick means he's WHL bound should they ever figure their league out, which leaves Adam Huska and Francois Brassard, neither of whom really strike me as AHL capable goaltenders. I think Wall and Grant could make a very viable tandem this season, but not a top of the league kind of tandem. One that doesn't often cost you games, but doesn't often steal you games.
Just kind of right in the middle of the road there. Could go either way. Well, hey, let's talk outcomes. Of course, first and foremost, we're going to talk best case scenario. Now, in a division featuring only 2 other teams, the physical style Bridgeport plays wears down its opponents, and they get Tyler Wall and Dylan Garand to stand tall in front of a surprisingly sturdy decor. Greco turns to AHL All-Star and Cooley and Rushoff. They both help fill the gaps in behind them. They finish with 27 points, which is an 86-point pace in normal times. But let's remind everyone that they are not going to play a 2-team schedule in normal times. So that's a little misleading, quite a bit. That's quite a bit misleading, actually. And I know I said the physical style Bridgeport played. I meant Hartford. So we'll get to Bridgeport. I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but reel it back in. We're still talking about the Wolf Pack. That was the best case scenario, 27 points, which is an 86-point pace in normal times. Let's talk worst case scenario with Sean O'Brien.
Well, to round the 86-point pace parade here, if Greco, Brzezinski, and Tower never get that scoring support and aren't able to sustain the offense, it's not going to go too well for Hartford. Their PK is decent, but gets tested too often. And Tyler Wall and Dylan Garand never seem to find their stride in a 24-game sprint to the finish, despite looking promising at times. The defensive core underperforms, but still manages to keep games somewhat competitive. They finish with 22 points, which is a 70-point pace in a normal season. So that's best and worst. What do we think is the most likely outcome?
Well, when you're in a 3-team division, it's pretty important to maintain the talent level arms race of your opponents. You know, you got to keep up with the Joneses even more so when you've only got 2 neighbors, as it were. Now, Hartford has not done that, and the model has them as at least strong team, the least strong team in the Groundhog's Day division, that is the Atlantic division. Now, it projects them for 23 points, which is just 1 ahead of the worst case scenario. I think they could get to 25, which is a 79-point pace and a 76-game season. So, you know, they'll do a little bit better than worst case scenario. But when you've really got only 2 opponents that you're keeping up with, and you haven't really tooled your roster to be a competitive force against those 2 guys, it's just it's not looking good. But we'll see how it plays out and if the model serves us right.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all we got for Hartford. Hang on just a minute here, and we will talk about the Bridgeport Sound Tigers.
All right. And our second team in the Atlantic division, that Groundhog's Day division that we've been dubbing it as, we're going to be talking about the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. Bridgeport Sound Tigers. The head coach of the Sound Tigers, Brent Thompson, he is entering his 8th season with Bridgeport. That's quite impressive at the AHL level, or maybe not. Maybe he's just stuck there, but who knows? So anyway, Brent Thompson entering his 8th season, 2019-20 regular season record of 23-33, 5-2. And that was dead last in the Atlantic last year. That was 8th place out of 8 teams. So
not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. Brent Thompson, I'm surprised you still have a job, actually. Anyway, affiliation for 2021 is with the New York Islanders of the NHL. Normally, they've got the Worcester Railers in the ECHL as well on the back end of that affiliation tree. Again, North Division, ECHL, not playing this year. I'm going to say that a number of other times too, but just throwing it out there once again. Games scheduled, 24, big surprise. Same with Hartford, same with Bridgeport. Imagine that, Hartford 12 times, Providence 12 times. That's a dozen each. Okay. Yeah, big surprise there. Not really.
Didn't see that one coming.
Didn't see that one coming. Plot twist. Mind blown. Anyway, all joking aside, let's dig into the roster for the Sound Tigers. We'll start with the forwards core. Now, Tanner Fritz is hopefully recovered from an injury. Now, I kept him out pretty much all of last season, and he's going to be coming off back-to-back seasons that were shortened due to injury. His 18-19 in Bridgeport was good, but not great. But that has to feel like a different lifetime for Fritz, who's played 4 games since the spring of 2019. The Sound Tigers are going to need his playmaking abilities if they want to have a chance in the Groundhog's Day division of the AHL this season. But I'd imagine he needs a bit to shake off the rust of almost a 2-year layoff. Newly acquired AJ Greer from the Colorado Avalanche organization was a good pickup for the Sound Tigers, as they certainly needed the veteran depth this season. Now, Greer is physical and someone who I trust to play effectively on special teams. Got to witness that myself covering the Eagles last season. He has above average puck skills and shows flashes of higher end creativity and use of space, but not enough to really move the needle. He's a good, solid second line AHLer who can maybe flirt with first line production in a bigger role this season. I'm surprised Tom Kuhnhackl didn't make the Islanders taxi squad. He's got some offensive tools at the AHL level, but is more known for defensive responsibility and penalty kill work. Andrew Ladd's insane contract has him coming back to the healthy version of Lou Lamoriello's Robitus Island. I have no idea how the Sound Tigers keep a guy like Ladd from wearing a C or an A this season, but the Grizzled veteran still has a good shot and is responsible in his own end. Is it bad that I kind of forgot that he was with the Islanders organization? Like,
Robidas Island.
Robidas Island.
In this case, healthy Robidas Island, where players go to, have their contract come off the books, but still get paid.
Right. Bobby Bonilla style. Oh, God. Anyway, Simon Holmstrom, let's talk about him a little bit. He is a returning player, but I don't consider him part of the veteran core of the team at the ripe old age of 19. His first AHL season as a first rounder certainly could have gone better, but 18-year-old AHL rookies who look like world beaters is still a very short list throughout hockey history. Still, he has a good compete level and solid puck skills with good hockey IQ. He makes good use of them in his playmaking, especially off the half wall on the power play. I think he takes a step forward this year, but I don't think he's ready for potential NHL call-ups just quite yet. All right. The best hockey name, in my opinion, Sean would think it's a runner-up to Zayd Wisdom, but I think it's the best hockey name, is Blade Jenkins, who has skill, but has struggled with consistency. And while he has an adult-sized body, I think the speed of the AHL game keeps him down rather than the physicality of playing men against 17 or 18-year-olds. Cole Koski has more offensive tools than Jenkins does, but his skating concerns put him in the same bucket in terms of adjusting to AHL game speed. Otto Koivula has more size than either Koski or Jenkins and a fair bit more puck skill ability, but his skating also concerns me. Koivula still has the looks of a middle six AHLer based on his tape and his stats last season, but with the combination of those two, I don't know if he ever becomes more than that. So that's the forward core of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. One group down, 2 to go. We'll start with the middle and talk about the defensemen of the Sound Tigers.
I just want to say, if Blade Jenkins doesn't yell, Blade Jenkins, every time he scores, that's a missed opportunity right there.
Yes. Or if the PA announcer or the sound guy can like stream it in there, Blade Jenkins, and like distort it, the original Leroy Jenkins, I think that would be awesome. And hear that on AHL TV. Just saying, this is the mid 2000s nerds coming out in Sean and I's hockey coverage now. But we digress. We'll talk about defensemen now.
Mitchell Van Soppel is likely to be the leader of this D-core. He's the best skater on the team, and he's a valuable asset in getting the transition game going. He can step up in the neutral zone and kill rush chances before they happen, and he has the hockey IQ to make plays off the blue line. He may not lead the D-core in points at the end of the season, but he should be their most valuable defender. Grant Hutton also has good wheels and a closer's fastball for a shot, but I think he lacks smooth puck skills and playmaking vision to be an offensive force on his own. But if he can get someone to feed him pucks, he can be effective. I do think this might be the year that Parker Wotherspoon makes his stand as a quality AHL defenseman. Not that he hasn't gotten respect in the past, but I feel like he's been buried a bit on deeper blue lines in his time in Bridgeport and has the skills to be a top pairing defender in the AHL. He may not get the runway to establish that in this 24-game sprint, but his skating ability, defensive reliability, and skilled toolbox do feel underrated to me. The Wild man, Bodie Wild, is an incredibly frustrating prospect. On one hand, he has an incredible toolbox. He's got a big frame, skates well, has high-end puck skills, and an NHL shot. However, he takes a lot of unnecessary risks and is consistently inconsistent in his D-zone responsibilities. Should he be able to shore up his puck management and D-zone play, he's damn fine defenseman in the making. Sam Bolduc is probably best suited for a defensive defenseman role alongside a more dynamic puck handling partner. Still, Bolduc has a lot of desirable skills, but I worry about how well his offense translates to the pro level. However, big guys with good wheels do not grow on trees in the hockey world, so he's someone that can definitely contribute to the offensive side should he be able to make the most of the tools that he does have. Overall, I kind of like this decor. They have size, but most importantly, they can skate with anyone. If I'm head coach Brent Thompson, I'm encouraging this group to jump up into the rush, be the fourth forward in transition, and basically snowplow through the neutral zone as much as they can. Use that skating ability as a weapon. So that's forwards. We talked defensemen. Let's talk about some voodoo. Cece, tell me about our goaltending situation here.
All right, netminders, here we go. There are 3 goalies on the roster, and unfortunately, none of them are Ilya Sorokin. I'll tell you, Jakub Skarek is likely to be the lead goaltender here, and while Skarek is undoubtedly a gifted athlete whose ability to explode from post to post can make what is a sure goal into a save, he's overly aggressive, and he relies on that athleticism a little too much. He struggles to make proper reads at times, especially with traffic in front of him. And he seems to have momentary lapses that allow some low percentage shot to sneak in more often than they really should. The raw tools are there for Skarek, but his long track record of inconsistency doesn't calm any worries that I have. Now, CJ Mott, he's likely to win the backup role as he has a longer track record of professional success, albeit almost all of it is in the ECHL. And while he has had success there, it's a very much lowercase success and not an uppercase, OMG, how isn't this guy in the AHL success? Francis Marat, on the other hand, he's the 3rd goaltender listed and put together a very good senior season at Clarkson after a pretty good college career at Robert Morris prior to Clarkson. I wouldn't count on any of them for sustained success, but for a 24-game season, after what is likely the longest layoff of their playing lives, anything can happen in terms of goaltending. Remember, goaltending is voodoo. Ooh. Let's talk outcomes. Sean, what's the best case scenario for the Bridgeport Sound Tigers?
Best case scenario. Guys like Bodie Wild and Cole Koski blossom this season, and Skarek makes the most of his athleticism in a wild and physically dominating season in Bridgeport. Tanner Fritz looks healthier than ever, and AJ Greer looks like a bona fide first liner and makes me look dumb for thinking that he was only a second line guy. The defensive core looks deep and helps lead the charge. Best case scenario, they finish with 33 points, which is a 105-point finish in a normal 76-game season. Now, before the Sound Tigers fans get too excited, though, 76-game seasons feature games against more than 2 teams. So while the Sound Tigers are very likely the best team in this division, they're not 105 points good. That's somewhat misleading, but I think they will probably be the best team in this division. But we got to talk about the other team in this division that I think is going to give them a run for their money. But we have to do that after we pay some bills here. So hang out and we'll talk about the Providence Bruins.
Well, hang on now. We're going to talk worst case scenario first.
Oh,
yes. Yes, we do. See, Sean got excited, wanted to talk about the Providence Bruins, but no, alas, we got to talk about the Sound Tigers worst case scenario, which is the question marks from prospects on offense don't go the Sound Tigers' way. And their forwards' lack of foot speed makes them have to grind out wins against more solid teams. Skarek struggles after a long layoff and never seems to find a rhythm in the 24-game sprint. They finish with 27 points, which is an 86-point pace in normal times. Again, weird-ass schedule. Just, the 105 and the 86, it's like you've only got 2 opponents. Like Sean said, the model kind of, to kind of project it onto a normal season is a little bit of a weird overhead overlay like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But best case scenario, worst case scenario. Sean, what's the most likely scenario for Bridgeport?
Well, the model likes the Sound Tigers a fair bit. Currently, they're the 9th team in terms of team strength in the AHL, according to the model. Providence is 20th. Hartford is 27th. That being said, the model has them at 31 points, and I'm inclined to agree. That's a 97-point pace across 76 games, but that's more a byproduct of the schedule than it is reflective of how good a team they actually are. It's like I said, the model thinks of them as the 9th best team in the league as it's currently constructed, which still, that's a good team, but I think their production this season is more a product of the other 2 that they play maybe not so good.
Yeah, it's a loopy one there in the Groundhog's Day division, but now we can take a break. We're going to pause briefly and get some advertisements, as it were. And so hang tight. 2 teams down, 1 to go in the Atlantic. After the break, we'll talk about the Providence Bruins. And we're back talking about Providence. So let me give you a little introduction here about the P Bruins. Head coach Jay Leach entering his 4th season with the club. Their regular season record in 1920 was 38, 18, 3-3. Gosh, with almost 40 wins and the season canceled in March. I mean, obviously that's going to be good for first in the Atlantic. No surprise there. Their affiliation for 2021 was, well, obviously it's going to be with the Boston Bruins. I mean, you kind of Bruins, it's kind of a given, but alas, no ECHL affiliation. The Atlanta Gladiators decided to bow out. They opted out of the season due to COVID-19 concerns. And so just Boston this year, 26 games scheduled. This is a legit plot twist. 12 against Bridgeport, 12 against Hartford. That's old hat. But Providence is going to be playing 2 games against the Utica Comets. So slightly different variants there. Not a whole lot, but hey, at least it mixes it up in the in the Groundhog's Day division. So let's talk forwards. And Sean, you go ahead and talk about the forward core, my friend.
Well, up front, the familiar face of Paul Carey is back to lead the P Bruins. A bit of a down year for him last season, as he still put 22 pucks home, just like in 18-19, but it took him twice the number of games to do so compared to 18-19. Still, Carey's got shooting talent and a long history of scoring and making plays in the offensive zone, even if he appears to maybe be losing a step as he gets into his mid-30s. Shooting talent is the hardest thing to find in hockey. It's the most valuable skill you can have. He got it. Riding shotgun with him is Robert Lantosi, who graded as a second-line player last season, according to the Point Shares model. I think Lantosi has better skill sets than his production may have let on last season, as he seemed to be in the traffic jam of good forwards like Studnicka, Gauntz, and Solaric in front of him. They're all gone now, and it's possible he breaks out with a bit more ice time and a little more opportunity. After that, well, there isn't much here in terms of, bona fide top 6 forwards. I think Alex Olivier Voyer could be an interesting guy to watch. He doesn't have the shot you'd expect from a guy who scored 44 as an overager in the Q last season, but he can definitely shoot and has some above-average puck skills. His skating is good enough to get by, but it's not a strength. I think some of his offense comes with him from Quebec to Providence, but definitely not all of it. I think he could settle into a good middle 6 kind of guy, though this season, I think he might underachieve that just a little bit, but I think in the future he could maybe be a middle to flirt with top 6 kind of guy. I think injury really hampered Jakob Lakou last season, and I think that injury kind of put him under the radar a bit this year. What I can say for sure is that Lakou knows only 2 speeds: sit on the bench and full throttle. He's very fast and is relentless on the ice. He has good-ish puck skills and a pretty good shot, albeit not one that he utilizes enough. He needs to shoot more. His playmaking vision isn't great, though, and I think it keeps him from utilizing what is a really good set of raw tools. I think he could make some noise, though, as he has the wheels to skate in a division that definitely does not have as much skating talent as you would have thought. I think Finnish Titan Una Koppinen has a chance to take a step forward, especially if he found a good Zoom skating coach. I think he's got enough skill to be a decent contributor for the P Bruins this season, but his skating he does not have a strong first step. He does have some surprising puck skills at times, but overall, he needs to get a couple strides to get going. Another sneaky one is Oscar Steen. He's a good skater, but I don't know if he's a good enough skater at 5'7" to get by. I love his hockey IQ. He plays hard, is good in his own end, and he has a nasty release on his shot off the rush. My problem is that he had all those raw tools in 1920 and pretty handily underachieved. Should he find some good ice time this season? All the tools are still there, but that very much doesn't guarantee success. While he lacks the more refined puck skills or playmaking vision, Curtis Hall has the skating speed that is rare for a guy that's 6'3" and 196 pounds. He may not be driving play off the cycle, but he's an effective forechecker who can lead the counterattack with speed. The same could be said for Zach Senyshyn, who's a great skater but lacks the offensive tools to reliably finish nights on the score sheet. Cameron Hughes continues to disappoint as he has very good puck skills, but his undersized frame and average skating appear to keep him in the bottom 6 rather than the top 6. And lastly, the ultimate Massachusetts man, Matt Philippe, is a feel-good signing. He's not the best skater, but he has decent shooting talent and okay-ish puck skills. And maybe I'm extrapolating too much from him signing with an organization he's been a fan of since birth, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to work very hard whenever he's on the ice. Overall, I think Providence has the chance to be a surprise team in 2021. While they don't possess the most shooting talent or playmaking skills in the Groundhog's Day division, they probably have 7 of the 10 best forward skaters on the roster. And I think that team speed up front counts for a lot. But what about the defense? Can the defense keep pace, CC?
Well, I mean, there's there's a lot of new faces with the defense and not a room full of familiar names for the P Bruins here. Zabaril, gone. Lozin, gone. Vakanainen, gone. Petrovic, gone. Josiah Didier must be looking around the locker room like he's a John Travolta meme. Just, where did everybody go? Still, Didier is a physical grinder in his own zone, but he doesn't have the offensive tools to contribute more than that. Cooper Zek is still around and is an elusive skater with good edges, but he doesn't have the speed needed to really take the next step with his frame. He has decent puck skills and an okay shot, but I don't think he's anything more than an occasional flashy second pair guy. Jack Ashawn is an interesting and rather under the radar prospect who I think will surprise a lot of fans this season. And while he's smaller and doesn't have elite speed, he's got great edge work. And I think the P Bruins would do well to give him some power play time as he, starts to understand how to manipulate PKers to find passing and shooting lanes. He won't be a defensive zone savior by any means, but I do think he'll do well enough to hold his end, or to hold his own in his end rather. Now, after that, it's a lot of guys that maybe could be something, but maybe not. It's just kind of a crapshoot. If Nick Wolf were a right shot instead of a lefty, he'd be a perfect complement to Sean, as he's more physical, in the zone defender. His skating gets him into penalty trouble, though, and he'll get beat with speed or positioning and take a bad hooking or tripping penalty because of it. Brady Lyle doesn't have any real deficits as a hockey player, but none of his skill set really jumps off the page to me. Joel Messner graded as a first pairing defenseman in the ECHL last season, but that doesn't really guarantee anything in the A. I mean, there's a lot that has to translate over from the ECHL up to the AHL. Now, overall, the defensive core looks to have a solid enough top pair, but behind them is a group I could squint at and see good depth, but I'm much less enthused by the defensive depth compared to the forwards. Sean, you talked up the forwards quite a bit and, trying to do justice here with the defensive core, but, just struggling to find a lot of equality in regards to optimism for the defensive group than you presented with the forward group.
It
But
reminds me a little bit of Bridgeport's forward depth in that there are a lot of interesting individual pieces there. Some guys who can shoot, some guys who are good defenders. And if you can find a way to kind of, glue them all together in a if you could put the puzzle together with them, I think they could get there. But, there's a lot of room for that to not work out.
mm-hmm.
But let's, in terms of, things that are hard to figure out, let's talk goaltending. Surprisingly, though, I don't have that much concern about this goalie tandem, which is a new phrase for me during these previews, because I have really had a hard time being positive when I talk about goaltenders so far, previewing the AHL seasons of individual teams. But Swayman was outstanding at Maine in his senior season. And while he's not terribly athletic, doesn't have the greatest technique, his ability to read the play is quite good, and his rebound control can look elite on occasion. He's also been very consistent throughout his college career. I don't know if he's an NHL goalie per se, but he has all the looks of a solid AHL starter from what I've seen so far. He's someone that I would be betting on to work out rather than the other way around. Callum Booth's pro career has seen him in 5 ECHL jerseys in 4 years, and never for more than 28 games. And while the results have been fine-ish, the sheer amount of teams that didn't keep him really concerns me. He's had some brief AHL time to mixed results, but not on a sample size that I really feel comfortable saying is anything more than just maybe. He's a good-sized goalie with above-average athleticism, but he hasn't been the most consistent. But I feel like given the sheer number of times he's been moved and had to adjust to a new team and a new system in front of him, it seems reasonable that consistency has been hard to nail down for him. But I like the two of them as, I think Swayman is pretty good, and I think Booth should be able to scrap together at least, an average-ish season in what is a 26 game sprint to the finish, because Providence is like, nope, we got to play Utica twice.
Got to get those 2 Utica games in there.
Yep.
Gosh. Yeah, and Callum Booth, I mean, he did all right. Like you said, 5 different teams in the ECHL. That, you hear of guys bumping around in the E quite a bit, but it's like 5 different teams, really? Especially, in net, I don't know. It's a bit unheard of, and unfortunately for him, he could probably never hit his stride, like you said. So, but Swayman's got a tremendous upside. I've heard from multiple people that they're really looking forward to him in Providence this year. So, voodoo aside, let's talk outcomes. And I'll start off with the best case scenario. All right. The P Bruins use team speed to have an effective counterattack in transition and get Jack Ashawn to lead a top 10 power play. Carey and Lantosi lead the forwards, but get good contributions from Steen, Lauko, and Hall. Voyer scores 10 goals. Swayman and Booth are the best tandem in the division. Huge praise. They finished with 37 points. That is a 108-point season in usual times. But like we said in previous scenarios in this division, normal seasons feature a much more diverse schedule. So it's hard to untangle that here. We'll just kind of push that aside and we'll move on to worst case scenario.
I don't think the worst case scenario is really that bad. I don't hate the goaltending. And even if that's, below average, I think having good vets like Carey and Lantosi up front with DDA on the blue line helps steady the ship a bit. The question comes down to a lot of their rookies, drafted guys, college free agents they sign. If they don't pan out and they get out-muscled by bigger and stronger teams in the division, it could be an okay but not great season. Worst case, they finish with 28 points. That's an 82-point normal 76-game season in the sense that 76 games played against 2-ish teams.
I like how you just clumped Utica in as an ish. The Utica-ish comments. Don't say that out loud because ish means something completely different these days. But anyway, worst case scenario covered. Most likely scenario. Let's talk about that. The model has them for 29 points based on point shares, but I think they undersell the value of team speed. Providence has all the horses in this division and goaltending that could very well hold. I'll take the over and say 32 points. That's a 94-point regular season under normal circumstances, but hell, we know we are not in normal circumstances. So wee. Oh, yep. It's getting to that point in the show, in the week, in the season previews where we are getting a little loopy. So we'll start on the outro for this one.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that first step there. It's a doozy.
It really is. It really is. Down the rabbit hole we go. Whee.
All right, so that's it for our show. If you guys are enjoying the show and our silly Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray-like antics, please make sure you subscribe to get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from, or if you're watching us on YouTube, click a like on the video and give us a comment on what you thought on the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling along the bottom of the video here. And as well, if you're listening to the audio version, is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead.
And my name is The Edge from the world-renowned rock band U2. You may know my electric guitar soundscapes from songs like New Year's Day, Beautiful Day, With or Without You, Bullet the Blue Sky. The list goes on and on. I'm kidding. Of course. It's because I got the beanie on. I figured I could make that joke. So anyway, for reals, my name is CC Hockley. And you can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL, and my personal Twitter talking about music. Big surprise there with the whole Edge U2 reference, but mainly hockey. My personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. And last but not least, the Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. Check our program, other hockey programs, and other sports podcasts on the main page over at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Sean.
I'm Sean O'Brien. I am not a famous musician at all, but you can still find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanO'Brien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. Both of those are more personal accounts. And while I still, tweet random memes about hockey, you'll also get some other takes mixed in there as well about pop culture and whatever else tickles my fancy at that moment. You can find my stats work on Tableau at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Big shout out to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction, DYSFUNCTION, so he can make music for you. Full Press Coverage hosts our podcast. You can find them at fullpresscoverage.com and on social media at Full Press Coverage for coverage of the NHL, AHL, NFL, NBA, and more.
Alrighty, we've got 9 teams left to cover this week before the Friday, February 5th start date. And of course, we're going to be holding off on the 5-team Canadian division because they're still figuring their schedule out. So
we're holding off on them because they're holding off on us.
A lot of holding off going on. So with that in mind, that's the end of the show. And thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. We appreciate you listening and checking out the Calder Farmstead and our season's previews here. And last but not least, keep your stick on the ice.